Hello and welcome back to another episode of Internal Rambles. This is your girl Rochelle. If you are new, welcome. And if you're returning, thank you for tuning back in. Internal Rambles is a very eclectic podcast. I talk about everything from my life, career, trending entertainment topics, etc. My normal episodes releases every Thursdays, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and my bonus content, which could be my reality show recaps. I also have a segment that I do with my close friend, The Male Perspective with Gio. And I have an unconventional book club. We're currently reading the memoir of Fat Joe. A lot of different things that we do over here at Internal Rambles. Today, this is another reality show recap episode. This is actually going to be 2 episode recap of Ready to Love. I am recapping episode 2 and 3 of season 7 of Ready to Love. So thank you for tuning in. I truly appreciate it. And we're going to get into these episodes of Ready to Love. Alright, so basically what I'm going to do is go through both episode 2 and 3 and just discuss what happened in each episode. And then at the end of this podcast episode, I'm just going to give my thoughts on where these singles and daters are and just my thoughts of the season thus far. Alright, so in the beginning of episode 2, Tommy set up a lunch for all of the singles. So the first episode was a mixer. That's where everybody got to meet each other. There were 16 of them. And then at this mixer, Tommy actually introduced 2 new men and 2 new women to the group. So we got to meet Cynthia, who is 37. She works for a consulting firm. And we got to meet Jonique, who is 30, and she works for a software company. Both very pretty women. I liked both of them. And the 2 new men were Fabrice. And Fabrice is 44, and he is a fashion designer. And we have Mark Anthony, who is 34, and he is a lab technician. And Mark Anthony is very handsome. I really actually enjoyed looking at him. But honestly, when I saw Fabrice, I was like, is he on the wrong show? Like, he looked like, and no tea, no shade, but he did look like he was somebody's sugar daddy. But you know, the daters, the singles, they enjoy meeting the new people, and this happens every season. Well, not every season, but for the last few seasons, Tommy will sprinkle in throughout the show new men and new women. So this is nothing new. So we'll see how it goes. And I do have some thoughts on Fabrice, but I will let y'all know as the show progresses on, and the season progresses on. So later in the episode, they the 2 new women went on a group date. So it was Jonique and Cynthia went on a group date with the majority of the men. The 2 new men were not there. So Fabrice and Mark Anthony were not there, but the other males were there. And they just wanted to get to know these new women who joined the group, right? So it was a good date, I think. They wanted to just get to know these new individuals, these new women and what they were about. And one of the questions that they asked Cynthia was, what was your type? And Cynthia was like, I don't have no type. I like all men. I try not to judge men based off of their looks. It's really about the person. I don't, she basically was like, I don't want to brush anyone off based off of their looks alone. So she basically was saying, I give men a chance despite what their looks may be. They asked Jonique a similar question, and she basically said that she tends to date who is attractive to her, and that's not always what's attractive to everyone else. So maybe the guy may be attracted to her, and to other people, they be like, "Girl, who are you dating?" But she doesn't care as long as it's attractive to her. That's all what matters. So it was a good date. Some connections may or may not have been made, but it was a really positive experience. I think it could be pretty daunting. It was like 5 or 6 men and then 2 women, but I think they both put a really great foot forward. So I thought it was good. And then there were a few single dates and another group date, and I'll get to that too. So some of the single dates were Tony and Marcia. They went on a single date with each other, and they seem to maybe make a connection. And it's really super early on. It's literally episode 2. But Marcia, she showed that she said that she went through kind of like a bit of a rough childhood, just like she was getting into a lot of things, but then she learned to kind of be compassionate for people. They prayed over the food together. That was a connection. She was like, I love a man that prays. So we'll see. They seem to have some common ground on some things. So I don't know, like I said, super early, but that was a positive date. Then a not so great date was with Z and Blake, and I mentioned in my recap. And I'm sorry if you hear, I'm working with a new microphone and I'm really fidgety for some super reason. I don't know. If you hear a lot of noise, I'm adjusting to this new microphone. But I don't really care for Blake, and he kind of reinforced why. I can't really. Actually, I do know why I don't care for him, because he puts on a front. I don't think he's very genuine. The first episode, he was telling some women, I don't want kids. Then he was telling other women, well, maybe I'm 87% sure I don't want kids, but maybe the door is cracked open a little bit because he didn't want to get kicked off the show, okay? So in this episode, it was Z and Blake, and Z was at the bottom 2 in the first episode. And he was in the bottom 2 in the first episode. And so he was just interrogating this poor woman. It was not a natural conversation, and she said this in her. I don't know what they call. There's a name, and I keep saying this when I do reality recaps. There is a name when they are in, like, it's just like in the little diary, like they do the one the camera to whatever. When they're talking to the camera, there's a name for that, but I don't know what it is. I can't remember. She felt like she was getting interrogated, and she was, because he was just like, "Who are you? What makes you you? Tell me about you. What do you do for fun?" But it just was not a natural. When you're on a date, you want that conversation to be flow. You want to be connecting. You just want to feel like you're enjoying. Like, conversation should just be like organic, not like you're at the precinct and you're getting interrogated by PD, by police officers, right? And he was going in, and she was answering. She was like, I'm really connected to my family. I like to do this. I like she was answering the questions. I was getting to know her. I'm not trying to be on a date with a chick, but she was definitely. But it's just like, that's not how you don't. When you're on a date, you don't want to be interrogated. You do want to answer questions, but it just was not. It was very off-putting. So, anyways, it wasn't a good date. So, I'm not a fan of Blake. Okay, so that didn't go very well. Poor thing, and I mean that for Z. So, another major group date. So, Mark Anthony, the 2 new men, Mark Anthony went on the group date with the other women, not with the 2 new women, with the ones who initially were there. Yeah, when I tell you, this was a mess. And not on Mark Anthony's part, he was fine. They asked him, have you dated outside of your race? And he said, yeah, I have, but I preferred black women. And that on a previous season was a whole like thing. And listen, I don't have a problem with, I don't have a problem with a little milk in my coffee. I have not dated outside of my race, but I would. But and the women did not have an issue with that. They were like, okay, ain't nothing wrong. And he actually connected with Mercedes because he is trying to get his pilot license. She's a flight attendant. She understands that world. He's trying to get into that world. So, okay, now, okay. The mess was Fabrice, Sugar Daddy Fabrice. I'm sorry. Can I call him Sugar Daddy? Because all he wanted to do was talk about sex. It was so inappropriate. How he's been all over the world. He's had sex with many women. Sex is important. And that, he has to be, if the woman has to, be able to satiate his sexual appetite. And I wrote down, what did he say? Oh, yeah, he said that the woman has to have a nice sexual appetite and has to meet his needs. And at the end of the day, he was like, he hopes that there could be more dates like this so that he can continue to have talk, so that he can continue talking about sex. Bruh, are you okay? I mean, some people are okay, but when you're first meeting people, even first, second, not everyone wants to talk about the horizontal boogie, there's boundaries. You have to respect people's boundaries. Just because your boundaries are wide open, not everyone's boundaries are like that. And he's like, in his little interview thingies, I do that to test women to see how they are. Are they open? Are they honest? You have to respect people's boundaries. You don't know where anyone are in there. Just because you like to let it all hang out, that don't mean other people, especially women, it can be really super disrespectful. And some people really were taken aback and were really like it was off-putting, you know. Okay. Okay. Bye, Febreze. Okay. Bye bye. All right. So yeah, that was that, child. Oh goodness. So in this episode, the men had the power to send a woman home, and in the men's lounge, which is where Tommy meets with the men, and they discuss who they're liking and who they're feeling, but then also who is potentially up for elimination. And Tommy introduced a new element to this show, first time ever, and it is the opportunity to save someone from elimination. So you have your bottom two, you have the ability to save someone where that week no one goes home. But if you use that save, you can only use it once in that season. So the men have a save and the women have a save. Once that save is used, once the men use their save, and then so the men have a save, one save, and the women have a save. Once they use their save, there's no more saves. So the bottom two women for this episode were Z and were Corvea. So the men felt that Z was more like a homegirl, that once she was in the bottom two for the initial episode, she was kind of shut down. They weren't able to really pull back her layers. And for Corvea, they just really didn't feel any connection with her. Some men, or at least one of the men, felt that she was combative. At the end of the day, Z was the one that was sent home. So that is the recap of episode 2 of season 7, Ready to Love Miami. let's get into episode 3. Okay? Okay. Alrighty, so for episode 3, the women are in power. They have the power to send home one man. And like I said, they have that one save of the season. Once they use it, it cannot be used at all anymore this season. So Tommy meets with the ladies and he says, I want you to take the men out on dates and I want you to take them out, but also I want you to tell them something about yourself that you wouldn't normally let a man know so early on in the dating experience. Really kind of take a risk and let them get to know you a little bit more. So, the first date was with Mercedes, Suhan, Mark Anthony, and Blake. Blake. Okay, and they went on something called Kangoo, which I had never heard of. I've actually seen it before, but I never knew the name of it. And I'm sorry, you had to look it up. I know I won't be able to explain it, but it's just this thing that you put on your feet and you're kind of bouncing around like a kangaroo, and it's called Kangoo. And Child Blake was like, I am not doing, you ain't going, he did it, okay? And Mark Anthony was like, child, my friend's gonna be talking about me, but I knew he would do it, but Blake was like, he was just so like, but anyways, and it was a cute little thing. So, after they kangooed, is that okay? Mercedes and Mark Anthony. Mark Anthony is handsome. Did I mention that? Okay. Went off and they were talking and Mark Anthony asked Mercedes about her last relationship, and she said, yeah, we was doing fine till he cheated on me and had a baby on me. Trifling. And, you know, they seem to have a connection. Like I said but earlier in this episode, Mercedes is a flight attendant. Mark Anthony, he has another job, but he's trying to be a pilot. So, you know, they have similar interests and they, you know, they're cute. I mean, I could see them as a couple just off of face value, but they seem to be kind of, you know, be flirting with each other. I don't know. Still super, super early. So we shall see. Blake and Suhan, they go off and they're talking and it's super surface. I know I'm going to continue to mention, I do not care for Blake. It's hard to put, I have mentioned why. I already said it. I don't really know if I don't know if his intentions are good. I just think that I don't think he's ready for love. So he gives Suhan a nickname and he calls her Susu. You know, I don't really think he truly feeling her. But she's like, oh, you know, he gave me a nickname. Maybe that, you know, it means that he's kind of feeling me. And I was like, child, I give people nicknames all the time. Like, that's just a thing that I do. I like to give people, you know, if I'm cool with you, if I like you as a person, like, I give people nicknames, like, all the time. That don't mean I want to, like, you know, date you and you gonna be my friend. Like, if we're friends, like, I give people, I have one friend, I think I got, like, 10 nicknames for her. Like, she's my friend, but also like my homeboys. Like, it's just a thing that like I had a friend who used to do it, and it just like passed down to me. Like, if I'm cool with somebody, like, I just give you nicknames. I don't know, it's just a thing. It don't mean nothing except for I'm super cool with you and I like you as a person. It don't mean that it don't mean nothing romantic at all. Typically, like, I mean, people really be grasping at whatever, like, oh, Susu, girl, I probably would call you Susu, and I'm not trying to date you. Okay, sorry. That was a tangent, but I just couldn't, I didn't make the connection, and I hope I go back to why she should not have made the connection. But yeah, that was that. Another date was with Cynthia and Andre, and they went on Painting with a Twist. I liked paint. I've been to Painting with a Twist before, and that's cool. I mean, anything that I can go do something new make me a little something and sip on a little something, I mean, I'm with it. And Andre, I mentioned, I have some conflicting thoughts about Andre, and I think it's just because when he initially showed up, I was like, this dude corny. And as he's kind of been in the show, I'm like, okay, maybe there's something there, but there's some previews of him that I'm like, I don't know. But it's when he's interacting with people, I don't know. I gotta come back to that thought too. I hope I can come back to that thought. Okay, let's reel it in. Internal rambles. If you're new here, I go off on in my mind races. Okay. Okay, so Cynthia and Andre go with painting on a twist. And so their assignment from nephew Tommy Miles, was share something you may not share early on, open up prematurely. So she basically shares with him that she tends to have a lot of barriers, tends to be not so soft because she's had to. She's been in situations, she's been in relationships where she's had to be the strong one. She's had to have defense mechanisms, but she asked him, are you willing to, like, what do you think about that? And are you willing to teach someone how to be more softer in a relationship? And he says, yeah. And she gets really emotional. She cries, and it was definitely a moment. And I hope that if they do move further, that he stays true to that, because that was, to be so vulnerable so early on, like that would seem to be a super genuine moment for her. So I don't know. She definitely opened up to him. And I don't know, he's been on some, several dates, so he seemed to connect with her from that initial group date from the last episode. But, she seems to really, she's, said to him, like, listen, like, I don't really be opening up to folks. So the fact that she had that vulnerable moment with him, I hope that, he is at least going to really try to be super true and genuine with her. So that's that. Okay? Okay. Oh, child. Fabrice had a date with Corvea. It was really super hard to follow. They went on a bike ride. He was just so assumptive. Like, she was just trying to, like, connect with him and just tell him about her. And he was like, oh, I know how you are. I've dealt with your type. You don't have to be phony. Basically, he was telling her, you don't have to be phony with me. You don't have to act like you interested. I know what you you come from. I know you come from. I know where you come from. Like, you don't have to. If I looked like you, I would be. I know how I would be. Like, he was so, like, assumptive, almost like really, like, arrogant. Like, oh, I deal with chicks like you. Like, I deal with chicks like you. I deal with chicks like you all the time. Meanwhile, she's like, I'm trying to let you get to know me. Like, what's going on here? And he's like, I want you to open up to me. Like, let me know how you really are. And she's like, but I am. It was super weird exchange. Child, Fabrice, no. I was like, child, what? Oh, no. There was another group date. It was Morgan, Tony, Marcia, and Lyndon. I don't know. There wasn't much I could say about it. Morgan identified that she's never been in love before. The only thing I would say is that Marcia and Lyndon went off, like, to be alone, and Marcia was like, I gave you my number, you didn't call me, what's up with that? Lyndon's like, oh man, I've been so busy. Oh man, I work in the nightlife. And so Marcia, as she should, called him out, and she was like, you make time for the things you want to make time for. No matter what your schedule is, if you wanted to call me, you would have called me. I'm so glad she did, because that's the 100%, 175% truth. If he wanted to call her, he would have made time to call her, text her, email her, pigeon carriered her, whatever. He would have gotten in contact with her. When you're dealing with adult people and mature, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, them games of, oh no, I wasn't. You make time for the people that you want to make time for. Barack Obama was president and made time for Michelle. Trust and believe. You know what I'm saying? Child, no. So also super quickly, it's so many people. It's like I see them. It's hard to like make connections with who they are. But Demario and Jeffrey, they went on a bike ride. Jeffrey does not have kids. No, I'm sorry. Jeffrey has kids as a woman. Demario doesn't. What she liked about him is that he was like, yo, I don't have kids, but I'm ready to be supportive and be in it to win it with you and them kids. So she really liked that. I don't know. That's all I have in regards to their horseback riding and their interaction with each other. Okay, we're finally getting to the bottom two, where Blake, again, yes, because he is, I'm not going to call him with the term. Blake is just not ready to love. And then also, Mr. Sugar Daddy Sex Machine, Fabrice, I'm sorry. So, I mean, Blake, I don't even, I've talked about Blake, and then honestly, the women were super off put by Fabrice's like sexual conversations. But what I will say, what the women didn't like about Blake is that he had been saying, and I don't know to who because I didn't write that down. He was supposedly, the T was, he was frustrated with the process because he really felt like his connection was with Jeffrey, and Jeffrey was like, he been blowing up my phone and he want to know what dates I'm on and when I'm home from my dates, and he's really controlling it, etc., etc. And that was really super concerning because there was someone else who felt like she made a connection with Jack. Oh yeah, Suan was like, oh what? But he gave me the name Susu. Like I said, I give nicknames to people all the time. That don't mean nothing, girl. You alright? Nonetheless, the one who went home was Sugar Daddy Sex Machine Fabrice. Hallelujah. That was just so off putting. Why they put that man? I mean, 44 is not old. He looked older, but I mean, listen, I would date a 44 year. I'm not that far from 44. It was really the sex. I need the sex. You want the sex? The sex. I do the sex. But also, I think he had an air to him. Like, yeah, I do. I've been all around the world. I do the women, and I do all. Like, he just had an arrogance to him. It just was a weird dynamic that does not fit this show. Like I said, he on the wrong show. Now, next up, if we can get rid of Blake, I really feel like we on to something. And so I don't know. So, here's the thing. Blake, at the end of because, they meet and they say, oh, we had to talk. And Blake was like, now I feel like I need to be harsher with these women because clearly I haven't been communicating. But now, since I've been on the bottom too, maybe I need to do them. Blake don't need to be on this show. There's something about him. He's not ready to love. He don't know how to communicate. He been interrogating the women. He's been controlling, or he's been doing something. He's been rubbing these women the wrong way. This is not the environment for him either. So here is my thoughts on the show. I've been saying this in my reviews of this show. I don't know how they cast this show. They're not casting it correctly. I don't know if they're casting it based off of who they feel like will make good TV, who is like pretty for the TV. These individuals don't be ready to love. Not a lot of them. But also I am concerned just about, like, do they ask about like their previous relationships? Are they talking to their previous relationships, like their previous boyfriends, their previous girlfriends? Andre, I believe that's his name. He was corny. He been acting cool. There is a preview with him where he goes off. I'm like, I don't know where, because he's been really like kind and he's been like growing on me, but I know that switch turns. And that's there's usually some guy at some point where that gets super combative in a kind of borderline scary way. I'm not saying he's scary, but he's like being like super gentleman, like that switch be turning. I don't know. So I say this. There's no one currently. We're only on episode 3 where I'm like, oh yeah, they're a good match. It's super early. I don't know. And one of I think last season it was like they were dating. Like some of them had like 2, 3 connections, almost down to the wire. That should not be happening either. Like it should come to a point where it's like, okay, yeah, I'm feeling you. Come meet my family. Like that's where I feel like this is like ready to date, ready to like, ready to lust. I think that's where I struggle with the show too. So I don't know. It is what it is. It's a TV show, but I don't know. I think the one thing I will say is that it's not bad. I'm liking it. There have been rougher seasons, so we will see, and we will see what happens. It's not bad. I mean, there were definitely seasons where I'm like, yo, this is just trash, like literal like trash juice, and I don't feel this way thus far. So this has only been 3 episodes in, so we are gonna plug along and plug through it. So that is my recap of episode 2 and 3 of season 7 of Ready to Love. So let's get some programming updates for the podcast. So I do believe that next week will be the honeymoons, beginning the honeymoons for Married at First Sight 16 Nashville. And like I have been saying, if you're not aware, I do not start reviewing and recapping Married at First Sight until they get to the honeymoons. So if that is the honeymoons, then you will get a recap from your girl. So I'm super excited. I have watched, aka fast forwarded, through the weddings. I just can't stand it. I think it's filler. It's annoying. Okay. It does seem like they didn't spend as many episodes that they tend to do on the weddings, but that could be wrong. So yeah, I believe all the couples are married and all that good jazz. So if we are getting to the honeymoons, you'll get a recap from me. And so my reality recaps, really the main one will be Married at First Sight. I will continue to do Ready to Love. I will try to do it episode by episode, but as I have said, I may have to do double up on the Ready to Love recaps. My normal podcast episodes are every Thursday, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. My reality recaps are bonus. There really aren't a set schedule for that, but usually I release them on the weekends. So there's that, and then look out for the next episode of The Male Perspective. Most likely that is going to get released in the first week of February. That is what I am shooting for, and I'm really excited about that topic. Actually, I'm excited about every episode that we've done. If you haven't listened to the previous 3 episodes I think we've done 2 on relationships, and then we did one on feminism and lessons we've learned from melanated women, and so really great content there. So the next installment should, fingers toes crossed, be first week February, if not, definitely first half of February, aka in February. So, thank you for tuning in. I really super appreciate everything. I appreciate all the listens. Subscribe to me wherever you get your podcast content so that you get all of these great episodes immediately. Tell all your loved ones about your girl Rochelle so that they also can get in on this content. And until next episode, like I always say, take care of yourself. And if you are able, take care of each other. And until I talk to you again, this is your girl Rochelle.